What is going on, ladies and gents? Welcome to Veve Investments. I appreciate you tuning in. On today's episode, we're going to be recapping David and Dan's most recent interview with Techweek. So if you guys enjoy the content, make sure to like and subscribe. Comment down below what you want to see in a future episode. Without further ado, sit back, relax, and enjoy. So after I released our last episode, I ended up heading up north and off the grid for a little cottage getaway, which is why I'm getting this one out a little later. I know it was posted last week, so I hope it's not old news for everyone, but we're talking about 5 points from the interview. So with that being said, let's hop right into the first one. Alrighty, so first things first, I do not know how long this video is going to be. The interview is actually relatively short, but I noticed that they were targeting day one users. So a lot of the information they end up discussing isn't really new for a lot of the people that have been around for a little while now. But with that being said, if you guys do stick around till the end, I do dive into some of the licensors that David mentions when he lists off a lot of the partnerships and brands that Veve has. Now, another thing that David actually says is that Veve up until this point has sold the equivalent of 600 plus shipping containers of digital collectibles, okay? So if they were selling physical items, the amount of items purchased through the Veve app would equate to over 600 shipping containers. That's kind of crazy. And this would definitely be a number that supports their success story, something that was actually brought up by the interviewer at the very beginning. Now, a huge pro to this is the fact that they're generating far fewer emissions compared to if they actually had to ship 600 containers around the world to various places, locations, and then obviously when they have to do that, it would take much more time as well, because there's time between when that container leaves port to when the actual product is shipped right to the front door of that customer. Now, another thing that I noticed in this interview was actually a question that I've been wondering for quite some time now, and that is what software creates and supports Veve's 3D modeling and AR capabilities. So we've talked about this a bunch in the past, various different videos at this point. We know that Unity and Unreal Engine are both going to be compatible with Cavernous or the Veveverse, but there's still always been that question in the air as to, which one's the better option. Now, at the end of the day, both are compatible, so you can use either one. But Dan almost describes it as if Unity is the underlying engine behind their AR integration. And here's the clip.
So a big part of our tech stack is the Unity game engine or Unity game environment. And through that, we're able to, if you own a Batman or a Superman or a Spider-Man, you can actually project that 3D character in augmented reality. And then you can do things with it. Like, for example, we recently dropped Lamborghini, and you can turn that Lamborghini when it's in AR into like a radio control car, as in, to a little steering wheel and joystick comes up and you can drive it around.
Now, for anyone wondering why I'm including this as a point, well, for one, it's a recap, but two, I wanted to highlight it for anyone who was kind of wondering the same question as me. I personally have always been curious about, what software they use to generate the models and then how they integrate it with AR. But the way that Dan words it and the way that you guys just saw him word it, it almost makes it seem like Unity is the way that they make that happen. Next up, and this was exciting to hear, it's always been something we expect, but it's exciting to see the co-founder of Veve say it himself, that the team is currently working on integrating our collectibles as avatars. So we know that platforms like Ready Player Me, we're going to be able to use avatars through them. But there has always still been that question of, okay, can I use my Wonder Woman or Superman or Fat Tony and Loki? But the thought of that now brings me back to our previous point, talking about how the team is considering gated sections of the Veveverse. So if you own certain characters, then you gain access to certain sections. Access to gated sections. I've thought about access to secret areas. So maybe you walk into a room with a certain character, or you walk onto a panel with a certain character, and that specific character is the only character that will activate that panel, and then maybe it opens a secret door or something like that. I don't know if that'll be possible, but it's a thought that I certainly have. And then we have talked about it in the past, but access to little mini games, and I know there's a lot of speculation around the Marvel Mighties right now. But nevertheless, to know that the team is actually working on this is a bit of a weight off the shoulder, I guess you can say, because up until this point, and to my knowledge, the team hasn't really confirmed or said anything about this specific feature. The only avatars that I've been aware of and that I've seen in like Veve demos and things like that are Ready Player Me. Next up, Dan touches on the current phase that Veve is in and what their main focus is. So he described this in two phases. He said that the initial focus was ironing out all of the issues that the team discovered during the beta, but then also when their system started to break from their influx of users. Dan had mentioned that they were forecasting 60,000 users by the end of their first year, and they hit that by the 5th week. So when that happened, the systems that they had in place, like their servers, for example, all started to break because they weren't prepared for the amount of users that were flooding the app. So now that they're out of that phase, their current focus has been on team development and internal infrastructure. So we've talked about this in the past as well, but making sure that they're acquiring more specific skill sets so that they have the specific people in place to kind of, start flipping the switches on when they need to, or in Dan's words, scale rapidly. And one thing, I want to point out here, and people really need to keep this in mind is, given David's past experience and people like Alcon, for example, as well, scaling teams and doing this over and over and over again are something that both of these guys have done, but have also been successful with. And it reminds me of an older video. I doubt I could probably find it. If somebody can find it and send it to me, that would be great though. But there was an interview back in the day with David where he was explaining step by step how you scale a team. He was like, when you hit 10 employees, you do this. When you hit 60, you hire an HR manager. When you get to 150, you do that. Like, there's steps to it, and he understands what those steps are. So next up, we have a section of the interview where David starts to list off a lot of the content partners that Veve is working with. Now, he lists off a ton. Most of them we all know about, but there are 3 that caught my attention. So first off, Studio Canal and Capcom, they're both on the Veve app already, right? Studio Canal is going to be Rambo, Capcom is going to be the Monster Hunter that just dropped. But Sony is one of the licenses he mentions that, at least to my knowledge, is not on the app yet. So in terms of some of the licenses that Sony owns, you have Affirm Films, you have Columbia Pictures, 3000 Pictures, Screen Gems, Sony Picture Classics, you have TriStar Pictures, you have Stage 6 Films, you have ImageWorks, Sony Picture Animations, and just to put it into perspective for you guys, that's just on the film side of things, and it's not even including all their partners. Sony also owns PlayStation, right? And then when you get on the gaming side of things, oh my god, there's a whole list over there. So in terms of what Veve could have access to with that partnership, it could be a huge portfolio. Now, in terms of Studio Canal, they're going to be responsible for things like the Terminator. You have Rambo, which is the one that is on Veve already, and then also another popular one, Bridget Jones. In terms of Capcom from Japan, we have Monster Hunter World, which again just dropped, but we also have Capcom Arcade Stadium that is over on Xbox. So I'm going to hop over into that game. There's an Arcade Stadium number 1 and 2. We'll hop into both of them, and then we'll see what kind of stuff that they have in those games as well that could possibly drop onto Veve. Alright, so that's going to conclude today's episode. I hope you guys enjoyed. I know it's probably a little bit of a shorter video. I was up north and off the grid this past week, so I just got back and started recording this one. In terms of our next episode though, I am looking forward to it. I'm going to be talking about some very specific things that I think the team can do to expose the platform to more people. But some of these ideas they're quite unique, okay? So I haven't seen anyone discuss them before, nor have I seen really many projects in the NFT space execute them. What I will say is that I do have one idea on the list that Peppy Penguins, the NFT collection, has used in the past. So I'll give you guys that little hint and see if anyone can guess it before the video drops. But that is something you guys can expect for Thursday. So if you guys enjoy the content, make sure to like and subscribe. Comment down below what you want to see in a future episode. And as for our next, I'll catch you then.